Call the Village of Johnsburg, May 16th, regular meeting of the President Board of Trustees to order at 7:03. On the roll, Trustee Frost.
Here.
Trustee Hagan.
Here.
Trustee Curry.
Here.
And Trustee Plumstein.
Here.
Stand for pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
From the floor, Mr. Keel.
Okay, the right turn lane off of 31 into our subdivision. There was a contractor up the hill, a construction contractor, and he's constantly putting stones onto that right turn lane. Well, one of our residents dumped his bike because his wheels got caught in stones, it's wiped out. And another resident did something, damaged to his car because the stones are right sliding. Is there any way that we, as a village, can clean that up a little bit, because this guy's not gonna do it, the owner of that property?
Okay, is this the sewer?
Yeah, that's
septic
the
hauler?
right, is it right? Yes.
Reiki? Recco? Recco?
It's actually, Mr. Miller allowed contractor over the winter to store his equipment there, and then they were bringing material in and out. It's actually an IDOT right-of-way, so our guys are not allowed to go in there and clean it, but I think our code enforcement could stop by and leave Mr. Miller a notification that his tenants need to keep the roadway clean and safe.
Because it's washing under the entrance to the place.
I understand.
Another question, will the homeowners association, do you have any responsibility to keep that intersection clean, or is that?
The intersection is the Village of Johnsburg's responsibility. We've taken over Alexander Boulevard.
So something is hurt, they can't sue homeowners association.
Well, we could, I think, clean up the
Clean the
road that's
intersection from the right-of-way in.
Yes. So we could have Davey.
Yeah, so Mr. Keel, I think the idea would be, the issue is premises liability, it's not your land, so presumably I think you're pretty risk-free from any suit. But I understand the concern.
So we'll talk to Claudette, and I will talk to Randy, and we can go visit Mr. Miller, and he's been very easy to work with, so we'll make him aware.
One more, like at the floor, that's a used car lot over there now too. He always has 4 or 5 cars there.
That issue's been addressed.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in process, we cited them and notified them. You bet.
Anything else, Mr. Keel?
No, we're good, thank you.
We will, look, so that will do it tomorrow morning? Thank you. Okay, any other comments from the floor? Laura, you are going to address later, double check. Okay? Okay, move to approve on this agenda. Motion. Motion by Trustee Curry. Second, Trustee Frost. Discussion on the motion. Anybody want anything pulled? Anything pulled? Any questions on any of the ordinances? Okay. They've all been previously discussed. Okay. Then, with there being none, Trustee Plumstein?
Aye.
Trustee Curry?
Aye.
Trustee Hagan?
Aye.
Trustee Frost?
Aye.
Motion carried. I would like to move the President's report to after the budget presentation, okay? And right now, yeah, okay, that's fine. We'll move to the budget presentation. That will be the longest thing we have on the agenda tonight.
If you want to go ahead and hand out. Thank you. started, I just want to extend my thanks to Kim. She did an incredible job on this whole process, you know, from start to finish. I think it's the first year you were taking it all on your own and running with it. She did an incredible job. And I think that you'll see just from the information she's providing, I think she's brought it to another level too for you guys as well. So, I think to get started, from there. Kim's going to do much, yes, Tom. Kim's going to do much of this, but I'll kind of lead you guys in with it. And, starting off, you know, this is a slide you're familiar with. It talks a lot about our goals that we try to establish. So I think it speaks for itself. Again, you know, have any questions about that? But we like to lead with it so we don't lose sight of what we're trying to do here. Next one. There you go. Okay. So this, you know, we first take a look at this the year we just closed out, which just ended April 30th. And as you can see from the general fund, we budgeted $5,029,672 and came in just over $4.8 million. The big difference there, and that's what I was just passed out to you guys, it's in front of you with this highlight on there. I think it's a lot easier for you guys rather than have to go by every single line item just to kind of zone in on what were those differences. So when I see that document, right away I say, okay, what was so much less in revenues and what was so much less in expenditures that we came in under? The primary revenues that you'll notice on that sheet that came in less are the sales tax revenues. And what that's attributable to is, first off, it was a partial year. We were kind of speculating on how much we were actually going to collect. But in addition to that, something that we discovered was that those revenues are not, the additional sales tax that we're collecting from the referendum is not attributable to food. We knew it wasn't going to be attributable to vehicles. So that did have an impact on the overall amount that we are collecting. On the flip side of that too, however, it also decreased the amount that we're paying back on the economic incentive agreement to Walmart because obviously a great deal of Walmart's revenues are food-driven, so that did have an impact on the expenditure side. A couple of other things to note on the revenue side were local fines, circuit clerk fines were lower, and building permits were lower as well. Our expectation, what we're already seeing happen, is those will be trending upwards in the next year, but those are what are making up the approximate $171,000 difference that you're seeing. On the expenditure side, the main decrease, you know, as you go through here, flip to the next sheet, you can see some of the major items that were impacted that we highlighted. A couple things just to note. Under administration, that first highlighted one, engineering. The reason you're seeing that higher, part of the engineering for the ITEP grant work came in that obviously was not anticipated. We didn't even realize we were getting that grant at the time the budget was proposed. We were submitting for it, but did not know that we would be approved for it. The building inspection reviews, you'll see that's considerably up. A big part of that was we did also budget for a building inspector in this budget. So it was anticipated last year that part of the year would be handled by contracted services, part of it would be handled by an actual hired employee. Additionally, what's impacting that is we did also do a code review. You recall Frank was here and went over all the coding changes, rather, that he took to the ordinance committee. So there was some costs involved in that. And then also, we had additional administrative support still taking place this year as we were transitioning into trying to help facilitate building permit activity here in the office. A couple of other items, the contracted maintenance equipment. A big part of that was we did pursue an in-house email server this year that wasn't originally anticipated in the budget, and there were some support. There was some additional computer support needed for that. Additionally, we had just the overall computer setup required our contracted service to help us more than was originally anticipated. Let's see. Debt retirement, I just wanted to note that because it looks as if it's less, but the reason is we are now breaking out the interest portion of our debt service separately. So if you look at the line item right below it, and you combine those two numbers, it's equal to the numbers anticipated in the budget. And another important thing to note was we did increase the transfer to police pension by about $20,000 more than was originally budgeted. A couple of other items to note. Gas and oil expenses are lower, obviously gas prices have been less. Let's see. I highlighted several, I'm not going to get into every little minor one, but just things that I think are important to identify. There's a couple of, and I'll talk with you further about this, Kim, under maintenance equipment and maintenance vehicle. I think there may be some coding things that we can talk with the foreman further about, because if you see the one's lower and the one's higher, and I think some of those things.
In the one place.
I got a
Yeah, exactly.
question about that.
Yes.
On the overtime for salary,
Oh,
public
yes,
works?
yes, thank you.
How come it's so high? It seems like a mild winter.
You're absolutely right. I will tell you that it always seems when they do get called out, it's nights or weekends, so we do end up
Sure.
having the overtime, but you're
Right.
absolutely right. A lot of those overtime dollars were attributable to actual water system monitoring. So we're making some changes with that. I also think we're seeing a little bit of a change. You know, we have new leadership in that department. There's always that, kind of fine tuning, how
Sure.
things are how things are being handled, but a big part of that is trying to do more automation of that water system monitoring. We do have, legal responsibilities as far as monitoring our sewer and water system 7 days a week, but trying to find a better way to do it so it's
Gotcha.
not causing so much overtime.
Okay.
But you'll note in the new budget, we're still holding that overtime down because to me, that's not a number that should be repeated. I don't think we should see that.
Right. Agree.
Yeah, absolutely. But good question. Let's see, under, I think everything else is pretty, pretty straightforward. There wasn't anything significant there. Under parks, you'll notice maintenance parks, that number was up quite a bit. If you recall the boat launch improvements, we decided to do the full improvements, even though they did come in over the anticipated budget. So that's what's driving that number up. The taxes, I just want to point out, you'll see that obviously there's a big tax payment that was made. That was for new property that we purchased, and there's kind of a lag time, a period of time before we actually get tax exempt status on property. So that is not something you'll see repeated. That was a one-time thing. We do now have tax
It's
exempt status.
parcels for it?
Those were the two parcels.
This parcel.
Rosado property parcels. Other than that, there were different building supply items that were higher this year because, we did some things internally here in the building as well, so paint and framing and different things like that were falling under that line item. And under the building improvements, if you look at the two line items, building improvements and Sunnyside Park expense, the $18,000 that was budgeted under Sunnyside Park expense was for the parking lot. It was originally expected that the neighboring parking lot next door here for Sunnyside Park would be done. Instead, we decided to do the Village Hall one. So you'll see we're up higher on building improvements because those funds for parking lot improvements were used here at the Village Hall parking lot rather than the Sunnyside Park parking lot. And that's pretty much it under the general fund. And if you look on the, the motor fuel was pretty straightforward on the slide up ahead. You can see that there wasn't anything real remarkable. We had a small project that we pursued. I'm going to go to the next slide. Does anyone have any questions on the MFT? I mean, basically, with the money we've got coming in, we pursued the little projects. We had a small project. I think it was just short of a mile that we were figuring last year's road project. So then, land and building, the difference there, Kim, that was?
Yeah, the difference between the 53,913 and the 68,505 was the downtown parking lot that we just purchased recently. So we were able to support that through existing cash. And then I'll just comment on the water sewer fund too. That, a lot of what occurred there, the SSA 32 was in the budgeted line items. The whole project was not complete, paid for entirely in this year. So you've got some year-end balances there. So I just wanted to point out that while it looks like we have $187,000 left over in that fund, 183 of it really belongs to SSA 32.
So it's gone.
Yeah, so we can't spend it.
It's gone.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
fine.
gone. It's gone. Any questions on those two funds?
Kim, I have a question on the water. Are you budgeting anything for capital reserves in there for like pipe things or anything else for the sewer?
We are, yeah. We will have an upcoming slide showing exactly what's going on in the water sewer capital reserve.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
Yeah, these slides are just simply to show you where we closed out this year.
probably looks familiar to you too because it was in our budget presentation from last year. So this is just to keep in mind what our challenges have been. We have underfunded line items, about the road maintenance and reserves, and there we're talking about sewer water capital, which Greg has just asked about. So then there are always the ongoing threats to state revenues, what's happening with them. We hear it in the news all the time, right? And then there's the ongoing question of funding police pension obligations. Claudette already indicated in FY17, we put an extra $20,000 toward that, so we're very aware of what we need to be doing there. And then county fines, as Claudette indicated in the actuals from FY17, we are seeing decreases there, but toward the end of the fiscal year, we did start to see an upswing in that, so we do expect that trend to continue. Any questions on those items?
Jim, are we worried about increasing interest rates at all? Is that going to be a problem for us when we borrow and going forward, kind of thing?
What are we hearing on interest
Sure.
rates? Interest rates, yeah.
Yeah, no.
You know,
Basically what we're hearing with regards to, like, we've got a bond issue coming up pretty soon. They're staying pretty stable, but we're monitoring them closely.
see if they're going to go.
Yeah, exactly.
With prime probably going up, or Fed fund rate's going to be increased in time, so it's going to probably,
Right.
we'll probably see an indicator of that.
I spoke with Bernardi Securities last week, actually, because we do have a bond issue that's coming before you guys, actually, in the next meeting. I believe we'll have the first ordinance, and that's for our portion of the Church Street project. And we're basically looking at similar numbers to what we saw, maybe even a little bit less than what we saw at the SSA 32 financing.
So this slide is probably a little familiar to you too, because last year we were talking about what solutions are occurring. So one of those solutions that was completed in the fiscal year was the increase in the sales tax rate. So you'll note, I noted some things that are done there, some things that are no longer needed, as in, garbage, because we eliminated that levy. So I just wanted to point out on here, in these areas that have been challenging for us, we were able to support them additionally this year due to the solutions that occurred in FY17. So, Public Works did some paving and patching. We were able to put an additional $20,000 in police pension, and we were able to put an additional $21,000 in the sewer water capital improvement plan. So, I wanted to keep this slide in here because they're still ongoing, except for the garbage one, right? Everything else is still ongoing. Those are still concerns for us, and we just want to keep them on our radar. Any questions on that slide? All right, so the question is, so we had this sales tax increase, right, in FY17, and we have 0.5% on non-home rule sales tax. And as Claudette already mentioned, we were forecasting higher, not realizing that the food component had to come out of there. So here you see what we estimated and what we actually received. And so I put that little caveat on the bottom there just to remind us what's not included in non-home rule sales tax. So the next slide will show you what did we do with that $190,000 that we received. So in last year's budget presentation, we had listed, several kind of categories of items that we were targeting that money for. So roads, parks, safety, communication items, capital improvement plans, police pension, economic development. So those are the areas that we were able to support through that additional sales tax increase. Boat launch, paving and patching, the pedestrian crosswalk, things like that. So we were able to accomplish a lot due to that additional sales tax revenue. Any questions on that particular slide?
Kim, the only thing I think I want to add is to, just as a refresher, maybe we pass this out as well. Those items were identified by you guys last year in your plan. I'm giving you an updated copy. I think it's if not.
Yeah, I just want to make sure Lori.
Yeah, Lori.
I'll take your word.
Thank you. If you don't have enough, I have.
Yeah, let us
more.
know if you have enough.
So that document probably looks familiar to you guys. I updated that and refreshed it based on Kim just got through talking about how there's a decreased amount of sales tax actually coming in than what was originally projected. So that reflects that decrease.
That decreases whether you're a non-home rule or not, though, right?
Right.
Even if you're a home rule, it wouldn't matter.
No, but what I think we just want to point out is when we originally were estimating what the
You took in
sales tax number
food
were.
And the drugs.
Right, we took in all of that, and it turns out that those items are not included, so we've adjusted and amended this sheet to reflect that, and,
Honest mistakes.
But
Yes.
I'm fine with not taxing people's food more, I'm just curious what dictates that.
do you know what?
Yeah,
it was like?
I looked up the regulations on the state website, and that was, I don't know why,
That's just a cap.
yeah, it just says it's not going to be on food items.
Is it the same with vehicles? Is it the same case with vehicles?
Correct, yeah, let me go back to.
But I think actually we identified.
We
that.
identified
That was a real
it.
concern.
Yeah, we
right
have.
now.
We took it out.
Yes, we removed that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
vehicles are included in the text that I pulled off, this came right off of their
Their
guidance.
site, yeah.
Yeah, so vehicles were on there, but I know that this group specifically excluded them.
Exactly.
Okay, are we ready to keep going?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so here we are at the point, what we always do for you is we give you a pre-reconciled budget summary. So if we could fund what we needed in road resurfacing and police pension and reserve, here's where we would be, right? We would be this year at almost a $500,000 deficit. So those are just the things we want to keep in mind, and we know we go forward with adjustments because we need to have a balanced budget, okay? So here we have the budget that the Finance Committee has recommended, and you'll notice the areas of proposed adjustments there. So let me just flip the next slide here real quick. Yeah, so let me just point out real quick. So admin is going down 50,000, and 50,000 is moving into reserve. Roads is adjusted, and transfer to police pension is adjusted, okay? So when we come over to the next slide here, this is how the Finance Committee is recommending that the pre-reconciled budget gets down to the balanced budget, okay? So in roads, we're going to be able to fund 120, which means we still have a deficit of 380. So you can see kind of how those lines go across, okay? So police pension, we're still short almost $70,000. In general fund reserve, if we could, we would have $49,000. Currently, we have nothing. However, the Finance Committee recommended budget does allow for a $50,000 reserve when admin expenses are reduced. So this shows kind of how they got to that balanced budget. Any questions, anything to add?
Kim, what's our total reserves a day we have?
So
And we've had this in the past, right? So-
we have not been able to put any reserve money in the budget.
Okay.
We have not been able to do that at this point. So
Okay.
one other thing that
But I think you ought to, there is money in reserves.
Yeah.
There is, so there's
We got
cash.
reserves.
Yeah,
There's
there's
cash in
cash in
reserve.
there, but we've never been able to specifically budget a reserve.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So we're almost underspending the budget there, so that's why the
Yeah,
allocation.
if there's a little bit left over, then that kind of goes into the cash balance reserve, right?
How many months do we have? I mean, if you look at that, like if you're looking at a personal budget, you know, how many months of reserves can we sustain? If we did it 1 month, 2 months, I
Right.
think we went 4 to 6 months was the goal, right, at one time or something?
We're going to come to a slide on that. We are prepared. Last year, if you remember, the auditor recommendations were, hey guys, you need a fund balance policy.
Yeah.
So we've been researching that, and we've come up with a recommendation kind of based on what other municipalities do.
Okay.
So you're going to see a slide in here that is going to show those recommendations,
Sure.
okay?
Perfect.
All right, so one thing I want to talk about right here is we have in the budget detail, we kind of did it a little bit differently this year where we have 2 columns of information for you. We have like a proposed / requested budget, and then we have a Finance Committee recommended budget, okay? So I just want to pass out this information because this will explain to you the difference between those two columns in your budget detail. All right, everybody has their copies? Okay, so on the first page, you will see, this is the original budget summary as proposed. So administration's expenditures are 858,610 and reserves are 0. Okay, so that's what you will see in the requested budget column on your budget detail. Okay, now the budget that you see here is the Finance Committee recommendation, and that's what you will see in the 27-18 committee budget column. Okay. So now if you go to the second page of the handout I just gave you, you'll see a document showing the difference between the original and the recommended budget. Okay? And we just wanted to make sure that you have this for discussion purposes, because what this is showing is that the Finance Committee, and Lori, I'll ask you to speak to this in just a moment, the Finance Committee has recommended that a certain portion of this building code enforcement position come out and move part of that money to reserve. So that is what's in the Finance Committee recommended versus what's in the requested. Now, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, other than I think what's also helpful is when you look at your budget detail, Kim has also added, if you go back to starting at page 5 of this budget detail that you have, you can see exactly what numbers the Finance Committee recommended to be reduced.
Page 5?
Yeah, start on
That
page
number,
of this.
Yeah, just a second. That way. Yep.
I mean, my old one.
Yeah, so on here, we highlighted for you exactly where that $67,815 would come out of the budget.
And then if you continue flipping through to page 7 and to 8, where it gets moved in. Those are really, and then 9, 7, 8, and 9. So really your key, out of this whole document that she just gave you, the only pages that are different than what was sent to you is pages 5, 7, 8, and 9. And she's highlighted with those changes.
So does that make sense, the Finance Committee recommendation here for what's going out and what's going in? Lori, do you want to expand kind of on the Finance Committee's thoughts on that?
So when we met as a committee, we were talking about, we literally go line by line through, look at the differences. And one of them, when we got to the building inspector, the question became, is this really now the time to do this, or should this be something that's appropriated but not budgeted for? And in the last couple of years, the village has worked with HR Brain, developed a really good relationship using an outside contractor to handle inspections. And in the discussion, we even, brought to bear the fact that even with an in-house building inspector, they couldn't handle things like commercial and that. And this was just 1 year of this budget. We were looking at, I believe, 5 months of the building inspector and 7 months of contracted services. And so we said, is this really the time to do this? And maybe, at least in the committee's eyes, it seemed like, no, this should be something that should be properly vetted. Are we at that point, at some point in the future, we may need a building inspector? But right now, we didn't think we were at that point, and that money could be better served in something like the reserves. And I know later on Kim will talk about the reserves, but there are so many areas of concern, I'll call it, where numbers could change dramatically, that 50,000 in reserves could help cushion some of that. And the things that were brought up at the time were state income tax, both back in January and now again in late April. As part of an effort to balance the budget, they're looking at cutting state income tax funds to local municipalities by 25%. That would be a $200,000 hit to our village. And as Kim says, we have some money in reserves, but we don't have $200,000 in reserves to cover something like that. Also in the last audit, and I brought it up in terms of not even the audit, but that is something I'm looking at later, our police pension and our IMRF numbers. For example, from last year to this year, our IMRF rate went up 1 full percent. And what we're seeing is the numbers that are used for extrapolating out the income that we have in IMRF are using a higher percentage than what is actually happening. So IMRF basically looks at that number every year. Police pension looks at it every year, but we're still a couple of years back in that analysis. So, and none of you have your audit in front of you, but in the audit, there was a number for deferred outflows related to the pension, and that number for our village is over $300,000. In other words, our village is $300,000 low on our pension that we can make up over time. But a change in that number by 1% is way more than $300,000 because, you know, we have a lower earning rate over time, it doesn't go up as high. So this is another area where, and we saw that even with our police pension number, where we've changed $80,000 in 1 year at the drop of a hat. Again, not having anything in reserves to cushion that. So that was the approach the Finance Committee took. Here's an item that we're not quite sure we need at this point, and here are some things that we know could very realistically happen to us at the drop of a hat. So that was our reasoning for changing those things.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any questions for the Finance Committee or discussion?
The only thing I would like to, that proposed building inspector is not really a building inspector, it's a building supervisor, a union electrician, a building manager, that we are now in the water and sewer business. When you left, Lori, okay, and when Dave Wilcox retired, and when Bill Schwartzloff retired, I sat down and prioritized those things that I thought, and discussed it with Claudette and Rick, of how we're going to go about replacing those people and what we needed first, okay? It was always on the radar, nothing that we have any complaints with HR Green at all. We realize that we will always need HR Green to do our plumbing and plumbing and commercial inspections, and we're very happy with what Tim and Frank have done for us, okay? But it was a process. It was a process of, okay, what was the most important thing? Okay, naturally, Public Works. How do we handle Public Works and move on? So we, got Dave. We interviewed for a full-time treasurer. You did a great job, but we thought we were at that path in the road where, and I can't commend you enough for the years that you did it, but, we were at that path in the road where our finances have taken us to the part where we feel very fortunate that we got Tim here and going to the next level, okay? And so what that building supervisor of grounds really is going to do, and eventually be a building residential, let's call it, building and electrical inspector. And that's why some of the expenses were higher this year, because Frank did a completely review of all the ordinances, and, we updated the codes and everything. But it's going to be a worker bee. He's going to be Not only, I'm looking for a person that's a certified union electrician, has electrical knowledge. We have to pull pumps, pumps in lift stations. We have work that has to be done, buildings to maintain, and somebody that can do that stuff, okay? Keep an eye on that stuff at the level that we need to do it, okay? Our Public Works Department are not electricians, okay? But we need somebody to fill that gap, okay? And that's what I'm looking for. In the meantime, I would like to have him be trained, and I would not let him do it. We're not going to go where we don't have a certified person. He would have to get trained, but to do residential reviews and inspections, okay? And I don't want to wait till we do that. I mean, we're talking about moving forward. We know that what we're moving the police department from the squad cars out to 31, we're doing that for a reason, because there's no expansion at the police department. We don't have the room to expand there. We have a few people that have explained interest in buying, so we're moving that project out there where they can check in out there. If we would sell that building, Aaron would be over here, and so would Keith, okay, working out of this building. They'd be checking in there, and then the police department we would be at capacity right away in this building, okay? So it's not to accommodate those things. Our Public Works Department is great. I'm not saying any of them are doing a bad job, but they are, it's grooming a person for this position to do these other things, not just the building inspector, okay? So that's the thought process behind that person,
And
okay?
I think as a committee, we talked a little bit about, you know, if not this, if there's something else, because the reality is, we've held some things constant. We've already made some decisions as a village. I mean, we've held property taxes constant from last year to this year. We have costs that we know are going up. So if this is something that, you know, the village wants and has been a vetted project, then there's something else that's going to have to give, because the dollars aren't going to change in terms of what you have to spend. And, you know, and I guess in the eyes of, you know, and when we look at like the building permit history, this seems like an area where, I mean, 2016 was the best year we had in a long time.
Yeah, permits are up,
For permits.
and we're hoping they continue to go up.
And we were able to do it at $95,000. Bringing a person in will cost us more than that.
But you're missing the point that it's just not a building inspector. It's a person that is going to be doing electrical work and carpentry work, and a skilled craftsman that has these abilities, and that we can have him do all of those things, okay? And we need somebody to do that. We're at that point of, you know, so it's not just a building inspector. It's almost like another person between administration, public works, and buildings, okay? He's going to be working with public works. He's going to be doing different things. Rick, did you have something?
Yeah. Lori, as you're probably aware, I'm not ever really a proponent of bringing on any more staff, especially with the history, okay? But when Ed and I originally started talking about this, what I came to understand, I think it's a disservice to call him a building inspector. Yes, that will be one of his duties. But I think the cost justification in the budget is, the fact is that we are in the sewer and water business, and every time we bring stuff on along the river, we pick up more and more of the electric pumping things. We've had several times this year, we've already had pump failures within lift stations. We continuously are adding more and more to our park facilities, and the direction of the village, I think, from everything from the survey, was that those amenities are greatly appreciated by the residents. So I think that the way, Ed won me over on this was the fact was that this position is actually probably going to be cost beneficial if we don't have to have all these outside contracted services doing all these other problems that we expect to come up, and that the building inspector part of it will just be another revenue savings situation. So I think Eddie's, or staff's idea about this is that this particular individual, this position, whoever it is, okay, is going to wear several hats. He's going to do part of Bill's old job, going to do some of the sewer and water stuff, going to do some of the building inspection stuff. And I think that's the way you have to look at it, is that this is a...
But the numbers in this budget don't reflect what someone like that would cost.
Okay, but what I'm afraid of, Lori, and I think this is the part of it that the finance committee and everybody else got to get understand, we are going to have these expenses anyway. Okay? Whether you budget for them or not, you are going to have pump failures, you are going to have this, that, the other thing, and that this person, I think, is going to be a revenue, it's going to keep expenses down enough greater than his...
How did we handle it last year?
Well, that's what's happening, is every
We're
year...
growing, every year we're growing, we're adding more SSAs, we're adding more hookups, we're going to expand the sewers on
More
Church.
sewers, more lift stations, more this, that, the other thing. And that's what, I think that's the trend that maybe the finance committee doesn't have a full grasp of yet, is you guys see it once you start getting the black and white numbers from it. What's starting to happen now is we're looking at the facilities and trying to project, okay, we had this many failures this year. Every year these things get older. Every year we put more units on. And
Rick, I don't disagree, but from the finance committee point of view, we have a capital improvement budget to cover repairs and things like, I mean, we're planning for that. That's the purpose of the capital plan. But I guess what I'm coming from, and the finance committee is coming from, is we don't have money in reserves for things that could happen like they did 5 years ago, when the state didn't pay us for 2, 3, 4 months. And you now have another body on the payroll that you do have to pay. I mean, it's very real that we're going to have a state without a budget for a third year. In an election year, I don't think so. There's going to be something that's going to happen down in Springfield, and the easiest way for them to do it is to cut local funds. That is the most painless way for them to do it. That's a reality. The reality of lower fines that we've seen, and yes, we see them trending back up, but they're nowhere near where they used to be 5, 6 years ago. We have a finite number of funds, and I guess the approach we were taking is, if what has worked in this last year, maybe it'll work for another year, and then, let's vet that. Let's put the numbers to it and see if it's worth it. But at this point in time, the numbers don't reflect that we're going to be able to get everything that you guys are saying for the numbers that are in this budget.
What?
That's the challenge we have.
That's the challenge we have.
Right.
But we had a balanced budget, okay? It's just, you're moving numbers around. It's not like we can't afford to pay that person.
Well, but here's the thing, if we need to put another 80 above what we put this year into police pension next year, which could happen.
We did increase the police pension last year, we put 35 into it, we increased it in the budget this year, I think, to 80, right?
But it could go up
Yeah.
another 80 above that, and Kim has to slide later on.
Yeah.
And we might want to get to some of that stuff, because that kind of speaks to where we were coming from on these issues.
Okay.
Real quick, Lori, I got a question. Did you guys put together any numbers to show how much this new position would actually cost per year without the $30,000 vehicle?
With,
You're saying it'd be higher,
Yeah.
98,000 with all the benefits and everything?
well, basically,
It's in there.
working with Tim, those, the
It's
numbers.
in the sheet that you get.
Yeah.
So
It's in the
this,
sheet, the
the
benefits.
30,000 that you
Benefits are
see
included
is-
for that period.
Yeah, the 5 months of the position was $38,000. So whatever that is annualized,
Okay.
because I can't do the math in my head.
And we,
That included benefits.
then his position.
That included benefits.
Yeah, the
Oh,
position was
so
30, so it's
benefits.
$72,000.
Yeah, so 72 salary annually, because she can add that to her
No, I
estimate.
had a calculator.
Oh.
I mean, have you looked, maybe, do we have any old trucks laying around that we use instead of buying a $30,000 car to offset some of the costs?
I don't know, in Public Works, we use most of the vehicles that are out there. Okay, I'm not saying that maybe.
Yeah, no, I forget it, ones that we were planning on selling, we could keep.
There's, well, usually the stuff that we have sold off, I mean, you're looking at stuff that was 20 years old. I think we just sold the first, actually the first truck we bought, we just sold in the last couple of months. It went to auction. You know, you guys voted on to sell it. I think we still ended up getting around, I don't know, $4,400 for it or something after 100 and some thousand miles. And that was the first truck that we bought when Bob was here, or Jerry. I think it was right after Bob left, and we had Jerry. Bob was our first guy, Jerry was our second person that we were when we were a one-man operation in Public Works, and contracted snow plowing and stuff out. Okay, we're very fortunate because we make the whole budget work really, really well with the part-time snow plowers. Okay, now even though like we were over a little bit on the snow plowing and overtime, a lot of that I think was some of the inexperience that Dave had as far as managing. Okay, but I think in his defense, the majority of it was that we had those severe ice storms that hit on Friday night, Saturday, and Sundays, and it was all overtime. And, you know, when the police call and, you know, you start doing donuts down by Josh's new house on Pitson Road, where people were going up and donutting all the way back down, or where Lori lives, I mean, I'm sure she experienced some ice difficulties this year. You know, that put that budget up to that spot.
Did we ever replace Dave Wilcox? You know, obviously you made a lot higher wage. I know, the question would be if you're gonna look at the public works side and putting it in there, what's the difference? I mean, this last budget wouldn't show it last year, because obviously Dave Wilcox was here. But what would be the difference of salaries if you're gonna allocate part of that position to public works or just putting it in building inspector?
What we have in there now is 5 months of that person.
In the building inspector, right? But if we would actually, if you're saying with the project, I'm more of a finance person, but if you're gonna allocate 30% of this, 20, I think that's what Lori's saying too. You allocate sort of, can you allocate a line item and still be salary, but some other people's salaries are allocated kind of differently through different positions they were doing in the budget.
It's where basically, where we're taking the money from to pay for it, okay? And, you know, if you guys remember last year when we put the budget together, we came up with a plan, a list of projects that, based on the 2 surveys that we did of how we would spend that money, okay? And what we did is we put the budget together, or the girls did, based on the plan that the village board approved of things that they wanted to spend money on, okay? And that, you know, and that plan was derived and presented to you guys and approved by the village board, okay? And
Ed's referring to the
Yes,
document.
Yep, and was approved by the village board, that those were priorities, and that we were, yeah, we understand we can't do everything, I mean, we all got a wish list. I mean, if it would, you know, if we would come and say, okay, Tom, we're gonna take it out of parks, Tom's probably not happy. If we said, okay, Josh, we're gonna take it out of economic development, you know, Josh will. We have tried to address all the things that people gave us input on in the survey and spread those dollars around, especially newer dollars, spread them around to be used for the projects people said we wanted to use them for. And that's how we came up with those numbers, okay? You know, and keep in mind, you know, I mean, a lot of the economic development money that we spent and we put in the budget last year and we got in the budget this year, those are things that are going to produce more revenue. That's the idea behind it, that we're expanding some areas and stuff that, you know, we're proposing to come up, you know, not getting off track here, but we're proposing to come up behind Bell's eventually and, you know, we're hoping to see those be revenue producers, and we're expanding economic development opportunities, maybe across the road at Carrick's, and maybe back here at that parcel that we bought, that those will be revenue producers, and that additional person will be actually a revenue saver, not an expense.
Okay, to that point and to Rick's point, can we make those calculations to figure out the revenue savings or revenue offsets that this person will provide?
Well, we can break that down to different areas, I suppose, but the revenue savings and stuff, until we send them to the school, start them out, we train them, he does building maintenance, and there's a lot of building maintenance that we don't do, okay, that we should do, okay? Now, granted, a lot of it probably is at the police station because it's, probably our most taxed buildings, okay, that maybe, and we are not spending the money there because who knows what's going to happen. Whoever buys it, they might just say, okay, we looked into expanding, just to refresh everybody's memory, we looked into expanding the parking lot. That wasn't feasible, okay? And that's what brought us to the planning and putting money into the planning for the village hall, okay, the new village hall, because once we get rid of that building, we couldn't expand there, okay? Once we get rid of that building and we put everybody up here, then we're going to be full here, okay? And the goal 15 years ago was to be able that we would update this building. It would serve us for 10 to 15 years, which would probably be just about right on target. And, from the standpoint of efficiencies, it's better to have the police department and the village hall all in one spot. And, then we looked into, is it feasible to do it here? And we don't believe it is, okay? So those are all the little things that were considered in putting this all together.
Rick, I got a quick question.
And we bring that guy on, find the right guy, bring him on, and get him into this position that can handle the electrical stuff, that we don't want to get anybody hurt, that Davey is great at public works, he does a great job, to handle those things that at this point we're with. Okay, go ahead.
If we had like a pump failure at one of the lifts, would you guys contract out a licensed electrician to take one out and put the backup one in? Or is that something that Public Works usually handles?
I think the answer to that right now is that we try to do as much of this in-house as we have to, as we can. But then at some point in time, when it becomes too big, then we have to have contracted people coming to do it. What I think that we have to be, vigilant about is that as we put more and more of this infrastructure into the ground, such as all these little lift stations. Now you have a pump failure at one of these deals. Okay, well, is it the pump bad, or is it the electric not getting to it right? Is it a residence problem? Is it a village problem? I think that's something that at some point in time is going to need to be diagnosed accurately. Okay, and if you go out now and there's no power at the pump, right, what does the village do right now? You go to the resident and say it's your problem, and the resident says it's not my problem, it's your problem. I mean, who can make that determination? And so I think that there'll be some of that going on. And then what I really think the biggest benefit for us is going to be with this person is the maintenance of our buildings is going to have to be addressed. The more that we can do in-house, I think the better off we are, because we got a salaried person that it basically costs us paint wallpaper or wood or whatever it is. I mean, today if you hire a tradesman for anything, and you have to pay prevailing wage. See, that's the biggest thing the municipality gets into is you can't hire a local guy to fix a toilet, okay? You have to pay, the village has to pay prevailing wage to a licensed individual, or not to a licensed individual, but if they have, whoever they pay, they gotta make sure that they're paying prevailing wage, so it costs us a lot more money to do anything. Okay, so that's part of it. I think that, you know, Tim, what do you think of the building permits and stuff? Once this guy gets on, I mean, what could he do? Maybe theoretically, 15-20% of it anyway could be done. You know.
Depends how much we grow commercially.
Yeah, well, I mean, just like deck permits and, you know, a lot of the stuff that, the easier stuff to do, you know, you don't have to pay, so, you know, them to come in and do it, so, you know, what are you gonna say, 20% of the budget, I think, you know, for the building inspector? I don't think the revenue source is gonna be any one thing. I think you're gonna have to look at a benefit from a bunch of different places to justify it. But realize is that the more stuff we do, and we're always adding, I just think that you're gonna have to add staff at some point, and this might be a good position to hire a guy that's very well-rounded.
You're talking, yeah, and then you're talking some guy with some vast experience. I mean, we're talking, okay, a scoreboard at the Miller Park and a football field, and maybe getting sponsors to move in and you know, sponsor different things, okay? Those things are all gonna require maintenance. They're all electrical. They're gonna require something to do. Even this weekend when we had, I think, Honor Society painted the pavilion at Hiller Park, and they painted the pavilion at Sunnyside Park, okay? Just little things like, okay, around the bottom, you know, that you see, that I see, Tom will probably see them, that should be done, okay, should be done before you paint it. You know, collars replaced, you know, is there a post rotten, you know, things that should be looked at that this guy would do, okay? Is there something else that should be done up there, you know? The coordination of the signs that we're doing as part of the beautification project, you know? Somebody to do that can put all those items together and do that doesn't tie up Public Works, you know what I mean? Because here we got Claudette running around coordinating all the street signs and the names and stuff, because Public Works, Davey with his, and don't get me wrong, I think they do a fantastic job with this three-man crew. We can only expect them to do so much, you know what I mean? And I think we're at the point where they do what we expect them to do, but we need a person to coordinate some of these other things that we're doing, okay? And if we're going to continue to do more, we got to get a person to fill in that position, okay? You know, I expect Gladys to go to camp meetings down at, you know, the Metropolitan Council of Mayors, you know, as our representatives. She hasn't been able to do that because I got her tied up doing a lot of other different things, okay? And her time to me is more valuable that she's at those things, especially that we now have a local mayor that is the president of that. I mean, it was always people from Ron O'Hanlon from the city of Chicago, or somebody from the mayor of Arlington Heights. Now we have a local mayor in Fox River Grove that is the president of that organization, you know? So our presence of having representation at those meetings, just like how we got the ITEP grant, was because that built a relationship at that Council of Governments. And, you know, being at the McCog meetings, the McCog meetings are at night, so I go to them. If I try to show up at the right days when I think they're doing something productive, because they are expensive, okay? Mary Lou is on the McCog board, but that's going to be on the McCog board, I think, this year too, representative to us. So all those things intermix and are important. You know, we're talking about the banners, we're talking about the flowers, you know. That's not gonna be Davy that can coordinate all these things, and it can't be Claudette that's gonna coordinate all these things and make sure the right hardware's ordered and the right things are done, and especially as we expand. We've talked about for 4 years, you know, that we got the generator that we got from the Army surplus diesel generator, of not putting the generator outside this building, but having it to where this guy could hook up the electrical, and all we have to do is if the power goes down here, we pull in that generator and we plug it in the back of the building. We got that accomplished by when Bill was here, at Shiloh Ridge, okay? But all those little things that, we had on that list haven't been done in 3 years, okay? And then we add more stuff to the list, that we're going to do more parks, or have more pavilions, or, you know, put stuff in the concession stand up there so it's usable like it should be, okay? And are we gonna build washrooms here and those other things? Somebody that works with Tim to coordinate those things besides Claudette, because she's not doing the things that I think is most beneficial to the village as far as moving forward and getting grants to make things go ahead. Okay, that's, I think best I can explain it. And all the things that were put in there were put in there from the recommendations that people gave us in their survey saying this is what we want. And yeah, there are some things, I mean, we're probably always going to be underfunded by roads, but I don't know if that's a true statement. But we always took into consideration that 10 years, you know, we should be repaving our roads every 10 years. Realistically, I don't know. Probably main roads you do that much, right, Tim? But realistically, your subdivision roads and stuff are probably 15 or 20. I know when my street, we put that, it was going to be tore up for the sewers, and we put, that little 1.5 inch Band-Aid on it in 2006 or 2005, because we figured the sewers were going in 2007, and those roads are still in pretty good shape. I mean, you know, when you guys do your survey, I had somebody ask about it, and I said, you know, Tim and Davey walk those roads, you know, but, you know, I don't know how much more stuff I put on Davey. If we're gonna have this list, and we're gonna move forward, and we're gonna keep talking about, you know, improving parks, improving fields, and, you know, and doing the street signs, and Claudette, you know. And this person could work with Public Works also. Do all the building maintenance, work with Public Works, do the electrical stuff. And it's just like Josh running his plant. I'm sure he has a maintenance guy like that, that is the guy that does everything, you know, and keeps things going. So that's why that guy was put in there, not just, okay?
Ready to keep going?
Yep.
All right, so this slide we talked about a little. It just kind of, like I said, shows the pre-reconciled budget to the Finance Committee recommended budget. This document expands on the deficits. I think we all know why all of those things are important, but I just wanted to make sure that they were listed there.
So actually, to go back to that one, because that one's, I think, important.
Sure.
I think that was changed, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lori, but we were like Laura Claudette. We were, I think, on road, typical industry standard is 12 to 15 years. I think we originally started at like 10 years to 12 years. We raised it from 12 to 15 based on what I just said.
Kim does have a slide later on to show where we're at right now as budgeted in here. We're not even making headway at that 20-year level. We're on about a 42-year plan.
Yeah, well, I believe that.
So, I mean, there's a slide later on that.
And there are some roads in the village, like in our subdivision, that last 42 years. If they're done right.
The special pavement.
Well, there's no doubt about it. The guys that put it in make a difference.
But these
Tim
are
will tell you
annual
that.
numbers also on this. This isn't a total. This is the annual amount we're short this year. This is at 498 that Kim
Right.
referred to a couple of slides ago.
Yep. Okay. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about year. So you guys have previously seen this, we sent out to you a document that was FY18 major budget impacts. So those are all listed here. So I kind of put them in categories of roads and
That was the
subdivisions.
first page of the packet, I think, right?
Yeah, that was the one I emailed out
That was
last
a
week.
good one.
Yeah, thank you. So you guys, you know about Church Street, you know we have some improvements going on in Whispering Ridge, road resurfacing, which we plan to fund there, some improvements going on in Thurman Estates, and then of course the MFT money that we would use for the road program. So, we've also previously indicated information related to the cold storage building at Public Works, as well as the interior improvements and the concept planning for the Village Hall. So I've noted in each of these areas what the project is, the dollar amount, and the funds that are supporting it. Okay, I think that's real important to pay attention to. And this is a continuation, so we have projects going on in the area of parks, as well as police pension. We're supporting police pension to the tune of almost $81,000.
And that's up from what, 30?
That's up from the 35 that was
35.
budgeted in FY17,
16.
yeah. So we have, you know, in the area of safety and communication, you guys have been talking about the street name signage program. We also have some additional funding going into the capital improvement plan. So those are all of the kind of major highlight project items that we're looking at this year. Any questions on those projects? So here we start talking about road maintenance, and you've seen this slide before. Just historically shows what we've been able to accomplish each year. And we know that we always want to be accomplishing more, right? So this is the slide that Lori was referring to. So the yellow on the bottom is what we're projecting. And so that projection on the bottom is going to come, we have a slide later that shows how we project funding roads in the next 10 years. So that yellow line as compared to a 20-year life cycle or a 12-year life cycle, okay? So, that was to Lori's point just a few minutes ago, our yellow line is way below our green line, okay?
And Kim, is this just general fund or to incorporate MFT as well?
This is just general fund.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, right now, these slides coming up are kind of some snapshots for you of things that we've been talking about. So, police pension funding, in the FY 2017 column, we always have the recommended contribution versus the statutory minimum. If we could be, we would be at that recommended contribution. That would be great. So, but we have to definitely abide by the statutory minimum. And in FY 17, I'm very happy to see that we were able to fund just over the statutory minimum. So that's progress.
Plus you added to it, right?
Yeah, so we originally had $35,000 in that village subsidy line, but we were able to make it 55, which caused us to be a little bit of a surplus in that line item. So, although, to note that we are still under the recommended contribution, and that's why we continue to show that as an underfunded item. So over in FY18, the numbers change a little bit based on, what's going on in the pension.
The police pension too, is that the police pension we're talking about?
Yep.
Right? Okay. I don't know if all the new guys know, or remember that, how many years ago, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when we passed the contribution to the police pension fund? Remember that? We had a referendum.
It was 1999,
Was that long?
I believe. Yeah, it was when we had.
Okay, and we passed that thinking that we were funding the pension 100%, okay? And then the state came through and said, okay, we've been using actuarial limits from 20 years ago, and we're not making 18% on the money. So that's why that fund got so far behind. We were funding it at 100% of what they were telling us to, and we're putting into it exactly what they were telling us.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, out of the clear blue, they said, oh, we're using something that's 20 years old, so I don't know what they do in Springfield, but...
And then it happened again
to get us to that $300,000.
$300,000.
So that happens twice.
Twice.
Yeah.
So-
And it happens again, it basically happens again with the new audit requirement, GASB 68. So based on that, we're still 109,000 under the 309 based on what GASB says you should have in there. Now, you don't have to have that in there because it's not a statutory minimum, but what GASB says is based on 6.85 return on your money, you should have another $109,000 in your police fund, which we don't. So, I mean, it's all numbers, and we can play with numbers all day, but the realization is those numbers for 1% change by $100,000 or something close to that. And we just have to ask ourselves, has our police pension been returning 6.85%? It hasn't, we know it hasn't, so we know this number is not going to go down. We're not going to see some huge release next year or the year after. We know this number will keep going up.
Right.
The other thing, we have to be realistic in saying, you know, that we're doing more than we thought we could, and we're putting extra in there, and, I mean, we're not going to solve it overnight. It's going to take us years to solve it, and we got to keep working on it and keep moving ahead.
No doubt, but this is one area where
No,
the police pension could turn around and say, no,
I'm
you
not-
have to pay us.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all, okay? It's not be argumentative, it's, the point is that we knew it was gonna take us years to straighten that out. I mean, it's not something that we're gonna do overnight, you know what I mean? We gotta work at it, no doubt about it, but, you know, I'm happy that we were able to raise it this year and that we had the extra money to put in from last year.
Right.
You know, I mean, we're doing better than what we thought we would with it, and, you know, when they spring that on you twice and you don't know that it's coming because they used something that was 20 years old, I can't even believe that those people are still sitting there, but they probably are.
We will come up on a slide that shows our future projections, that shows exactly how we are building it.
Okay. I have a quick question too. I mean, I think you brought it up, even with the buildings, not to go back to that situation, but population growth. I mean, we won't have another census until 2020, but it seems like we're getting new construction again, people are filling it up and having vacancies of rental. You know, should we be looking at our population size for which staff we need, even roads, because we're going to be taking on more roads, it seems like all the time, and do we need more police officers if we have X more percentage of people? So should we be looking at that? I mean, this is just as next year we're probably going to be flat, but we know that things are going up. We're looking at this, obviously, our sales tax revenue coming up. So should we be factoring something like this with a better projection for years to come to help us make better budgetary decisions? Not always looking at from year to year, but looking at what's our 5 or 10 year plan. Kind of what Lori's asking that question too, is we don't know that. I mean, obviously interest rates are low today. We hope they go up and maybe that'll help us with relief, but we don't know that. But we should be looking at both sides of it. If it goes down, goes up, you know, how do we look at this? This is just one snapshot in the road, which we have to for budgetary reasons, but I think to help down the road later on, it'd be better for us to kind of see better projections. If we grew, we had 5% increase in our population or something would happen, another boom, do we, you know, then keep that come back and say, oh, I need 2 more officers, or we got a huge commercial spike or something happen, we got more retail. It'd be great. I mean, we'd be getting sales tax revenue, but how do we look at that stuff and project that? I mean, that's the hard thing, because we're trying to make decisions today, future, you know, things come.
All right, so continuing with our snapshots of underfunded items. So we've talked about how much money is recommended to have in reserve, right? So the auditors said you guys need a fund balance policy, so we looked at it, and based on, you know, the blue is kind of what we have sitting in the bank, right? And then in FY18, the Finance Committee recommends increasing that by $50,000. So you see the blue going up a little in FY18, you see the recommendation going up. So that recommendation in green is based on this proposed policy that we're going to be putting forward through the Finance Committee and then through to the board. So what we're showing here is a recommended 2-month minimum per this policy that will be coming forward. So as Lori pointed out earlier, we have quite the difference in the levels there.
Just for clarification points, this is solely reserves. This does not take into consideration capital fund money that's set aside.
Right, right.
Real quick question for you. In fiscal year 18, what numbers do we back off of the total? This particular budget is considerably elevated by major projects, and that's not the norm. So are we
We
looking
took
solely
that out.
operational?
Yeah, this is solely operational, so the 1.2 million for the Church Street project came out, and also transfers to capital fund came out. So we don't want to consider those to be operating expenditures.
Right, but actually, just for a note,
But
more
now you
should
line-
come out than that, because there's probably almost $400,000 in that budget that are included that are not, in addition, for example, the LLC for the Spring Ridge and all those. There's a bunch of
Good
other
point,
stuff.
good point.
But it's still
Yeah.
going to be up
It's
there
still
in
gonna
that
be a pretty big
$700,000, because I think that's what I was
Yeah.
projecting about, 700.
That's a good point, okay, thank you.
Do we have our borrowing capacity on there? From like a banking perspective, we also get, what could be your borrowing capacity too? So we need to get into something, do we have that, or do we have to go out and get bonds or something like that, or raise something if we needed money, if we, like, or if something would happen that we wouldn't get paid by the state for 2-3 months, what would we do? You know what I mean? Obviously, go into capital.
We'll probably borrow it from ourselves in the capital fund, I would think.
So you borrow.
Yeah.
So you look at cash flow in, cash flow out, but also would we have to, do we have any methods of looking at our borrowing capacity? If we had to, or?
Well, yeah, we
or working
certainly
lines
do have the
we
ability to do that, but I think that's
Sure,
right.
that's
That'll
like
be a
a-
last case scenario.
Yeah, so just, I also want to see that too, it's like working line, how much we could tap if we wanted to, or working lines we needed to, potentially. Worst case scenario for us, but.
Keep in mind too, as we look at all these things, just as in the back of our heads, their reserves are good, I get it, and I would like to be within the recommendations of what Lori or
Finance committee?
Finance has. But, right now, the general public is after everybody that's got too much reserves.
Sure.
And you know how, they're after every taxing body that has too much in reserves. I mean, if you want to hear it, go listen to people right now that are upset about the township fire district with what they have in reserves, the maximum amount that they have or whatever.
Besides the litigation
The litigation.
brought against the county,
Yes.
the township, and the school district, right, which was
But I'll interject here, having a capital plan where you have allocated what your reserves are for does protect you. This is not looked at as, you guys have all this money, a pile of money sitting here and not doing anything.
I don't think any of us would argue that the capital plan is not right,
Right.
and not a good thing.
Right, so, but there are people who might argue that might say you could use that as your reserves. On the other hand, by having a capital plan and having reserves, you're not only prepared for unforeseen circumstances by outside areas like Springfield, you're also in better shape for borrowing. You're going to get a better rate. You're going to get a higher rating, giving you a better rate. So all these things, even though it's money sitting in the bank, helps you in the long run to have things cost less if in fact you are borrowing to do projects.
Right.
It's like, Greg's a banker. The only time they want to give you money is when you don't need it, so that's, we understand.
One would argue interest rates are low, you don't have to borrow the money, but if you be borrowing now to fix the road structure that's cheaper than when rates are probably going in the future. I mean, there's different ways of looking at this.
I think we're doing the biggest road, probably,
Yeah,
the
sure.
biggest road projects this year that we've ever done, that we've ever done, outside of Johnston Road. maybe.
All right, keep going. Okay, so this is just a snapshot of general fund revenues. We always put this slide in here just so you can kind of see what's the largest, what's the smallest. I think we all know sales tax is the largest revenue producer there. The items highlighted in yellow are just to indicate that those are not operating revenues. When you look at the total revenue in the general fund budget, that's not revenue every year, right? Like Church Street's
That's
gonna
what
go
we're-
away, all that good stuff. You guys know that. So,
No, I think it's good.
yeah, so same thing on the expenditure side. So you've got debt retirement down on the left, up to public safety on the right, you've got a couple items that are non-operating in there too. So this just shows you the level of spending for each category. We like to show you this every year too. This is just a general fund analysis where you have revenue versus expenditures. And we always put the capital funding in blue just to show what we've been able to accomplish kind of, you know, in a picture format since we developed the capital plan. Oh, and just, I put the note on there, just the reason why FY18 is so high is because Church Street project is in that number. So that's a big jump there. Okay, so that was the general fund, yes. So now we're looking at the water and sewer fund, and no major changes in this fund. Sewer user fees are higher than last year because, you know, the school district came on in FY17, so we had some of that come in. A note, we did not include anything for Sunnyside Beach coming on just yet because we don't know the timing of that, all that good stuff. So we
Tim,
didn't.
is the library on?
Not yet.
They're not, because I thought they were coming out last year too. They didn't?
I get it. They're aware of it, they're about 5 feet away from it, but they haven't made the jump yet.
So that is a summary of the balanced water and sewer fund budget. Here we have land and building and MST. So land and building, that almost $54,000 is really just the loan payment for the land we purchased in FY16. And MST road program, that's the only thing that goes in there. That's plus a little bit of engineering for the road program. So, Greg, this speaks to your question of what's going on in capital improvement plan. So this is the general fund. So you can see the balance by category, what we plan to move over into the capital improvement plan, and what we expect to spend out of the capital improvement plan. So we would project at year end to have a capital improvement plan balance of $822,000. Any questions on that one?
That's in all funds. All.
This is the general fund.
But it's when you say capital improvement.
Right, so the next slide will be the water and sewer fund. So here's the water sewer fund, you know, same kind of setup. What's the balance now? What are we going to move over there? We don't have any projects planned, so that number is just going to go up to just under $491,000. This is just a pretty little picture for you of some of the major revenue trends over the last 5 years. Sales tax, as you see there. Now, realize that in FY17, we had that increase due to the additional sales tax revenue. And video gaming, while it looks quite insignificant next to sales, it is a very important item that is trending up. And then you have real estate taxes, and just to note that in FY16 that did go down because the garbage levy went away. And then you have the trend on income and use and franchise utilities, et cetera.
A question for you on the real estate, obviously, they're levying the flat, but if we see, obviously, when they're doing most people's taxes up, because obviously sale prices are going up, are we taking into consideration that with 7.2% is the average that I think Henry Township has most properties in the area, are we taking into the EAV level coming up too, because we're obviously getting the money for that, if we money.
So we've held our levy flat. So no, we have not, the board decided we weren't going to go after the increase.
But the numbers get set up higher, so therefore we'll
Yep.
get a bigger portion.
Yep.
Over time.
No.
It's a
No,
flat
no.
levy dollar.
It's a dollar amount.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not.
We didn't even go after new growth.
So we go up to the.
Yeah, we just went flat.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, and here is building permit history, just so you can see, we thought this was very interesting. And it's important to note too that this is on a calendar year basis. At some point, we're going to move this over to a fiscal year basis because that makes more sense to us, but here you have what occurred in 2016. 2015 was very odd because, you know, we had that giant hailstorm that caused us to have 298 roofing siding permits. So you can see in the 2017 column what has occurred since January 1st.
What would be the others? We went from 0 to 17.
Where?
So the bottom line, other. So in the 2017 column, you know, some of them would be like sewer connection permits, utility, like pipe permits. So truly other that don't fit
We
in.
do a lot of permit review for ComEd, NICOR, and cable TV, and phone, and whenever they do work in our right-of-way, Utilities Inc., we also do reviews for those from an engineering standpoint. So those are the others. Some people do sign, well, signs are in there, but people do one-off projects that don't fit the categories.
Yeah. Now that we have our new software system, we're able to really, really hone in on what the categories are. So the others are truly, truly other sewer and utility. And we always like to show you where we compare to other municipalities as far as our real estate tax rate goes. So you see Johnsburg there on the right side, and we did move down a position this year. So we improved our position on this chart.
Well, yeah, we're taxing lower
Yes,
than everybody else.
correct.
And that's just our Johnsburg tax too. It's not a combined tax rate, you know, so if you took the multiplier of all the taxing districts in Johnsburg, we'd probably look better.
You mean like the school
At least
district and-
the school district, fire district, the whole thing.
Yeah, this is
Because you
strictly
take
the
all of
village.
them, the library district and all those things, and look at it according to Senator Elcock, when we were able to look better. Correct, Claudette?
Yes,
That's what she was referring to.
right.
That our combined tax rate was one of the lowest. Which, I think that's what matters, really.
Crystal Lake has its own park district, right, so they're not even, that's a separate taxing body, even though we take care of the parks within the village, so you get.
And look at the industry they got and stuff, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so here we have, I know this is really, really difficult to read on the
One slide, I
screen.
did want to make one comment,
Go back one.
going to what Greg was saying.
Right here?
Yes. So, everyone below us, other than Crystal Lake, does not have a full-time police department, which is significant, and like Greg, you said, in terms of a park district versus some other things, and, well, and Marywood doesn't even have a police department at all. But everyone else, I mean, in terms of services provided, it's not till you get to Johnsburg, Lakemore, Huntling, that you have, and Cary, that you have full-time police departments, which, you know, it's something to kind of keep in mind when you're comparing yourself with another village. Because that is a significant part of our budget.
And I think, when you do that, you have to think of villages similar size, similar revenue streams, you know. You know, I mean, to compare us to Crystal Lake, and like you said, they have a separate park district, they may, their rate for the park district might be equal to that rate for the city, you know, where, you know, McHenry has parks too, and Richmond Park, it's a parks department, it's within that taxing structure there.
So is it fair to say Harvard, Woodstock, Marengo, Richmond, to name a few, their tax rates are cranked way up because they had older wastewater treatment plants. They were required to improve them, and then they use the SRF loan, and they are so far underwater to help pay for those improvements. That's what causes, because Harvard's kind of a small town, not a lot of action. Richmond definitely is a small town with no action, but when
Richmond is like 1,100 people, right?
Exactly. Marengo's 7,000, and they're have cranked up because they had to bond $12 million
Yeah, deeper into
for
that.
a treatment plant. And in there, you're going to start seeing a few more communities coming up in the very near future because of the EPA limits, rules, and regs.
And loans, we looked into way back when.
We did.
You know, we were first on the board, Rick and I first were on the board.
We looked
and
into it, we found it to be better to go local through local banks.
Banks,
The money we saved and not follow.
because we wouldn't even be having this discussion, they just take what they need.
Well, Village of Richmond and Antioch that's not on there, and Harvard, Woodstock, Marengo, all had to adjust their water and sewer rates whether they liked it or not, and some of those towns cranked them up 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times what they had to, because they signed that agreement for the SRF loan, that you would pledge the existing user base. I just wanted you to, when you look at those small towns.
I mean, you're looking at, when you say crank them up, I mean, water or sewer bills, water and sewer bills up.
When I lived in Richmond, I was paying $30, $40. Now in Richmond, it's almost $150 a month. And 70% of that town is on fixed income and lives in Silver Trees and other locations throughout the community. That hurt them bad. Antioch had to triple their rates. So the planning you've done and all the good stuff you've done has paid off. And that's why, one of the key reasons why the tax rate. And I don't think you get enough credit for that. These other towns that are struggling, I mean, that's why you see change, that's why, you know.
That was way back in the Dave Dominguez and
In the
Rick was.
90s, in the 90s, we started looking at the SRF. Everyone we went to for grants and funding said, oh, go to the SRF loan, it's only 1.9%. By the time you followed their rules and regs, you were paying +6.
Okay, so, and if you could pass that one down to everybody. So, I'm sorry, this is really hard to see on here, so we're passing out a copy for you to look closer at. And, do you want to speak to the
Yeah.
projections there?
This is a document that's also going to look familiar to you. We do it each year. I think the important thing to note in this is a lot of those items that we're talking about being concerned, addressing both now and into the long term, such as your police pension, your road resurfacing, you'll see that we're continuing to increase the amount that we're contributing towards that. And as we start getting to year 2021, we're starting to see, even with all those items, including a contribution to reserves, we're still seeing dollars left that can be directed where the board sees it's best needed. Then in 2022 is the last year that we're expecting to be paying back on the sales tax reimbursement to Walmart. All of a sudden, you see our revenues jump up considerably. So those shortfalls that we're concerned about long-term, obviously with road resurfacing and police pension, will easily be addressed come 2023. The question is, how do we sustain them and continue funding them between now and then? We are seeing a progression. If you look at, I tried to highlight those line items that, as transfer to police pension, road resurfacing, and the reserves. But, any opportunity we have to continue giving funds to those items prior to the sales tax dollar reimbursement being fulfilled, that would be our goal. This, I've got little footnotes on there, just a quick thing to note. Both expenditures and revenues are projected at a 2% increase per year. That's just a conservative number that we use. We've incorporated all the items that we've identified in the new revenue distribution, the sheet I gave to you previously, where you identified where sales tax would be spent. Those are incorporated into the spreadsheet as well.
I have a question on the road resurfacing. I see how it jumps up nice and big in 18 and keeps going up. Does that follow that other chart we were looking at where we're still way below though?
You incorporate it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the yellow line on the
Okay.
bottom where it goes up.
I mean, it looks good, it's like, yeah, look at all that money going in.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's still, we're way behind.
But the thing is, look at the green line on the bottom, the difference. You look at what's left over, especially come 2023, you have a considerable amount of funds that can be directed to that.
Right.
Anyway, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen between now and 2023,
Right.
how things can come about. But it's encouraging to see
We don't have a
that,
crystal ball, so.
Yeah.
Right.
Clark, can I ask you a question about that? Because I just for Field, you always say that we're trying to put $500,000 away for road resurfacing. And every year, at best, we're spending half of that. But isn't that really not really reflective of the fact is because the amount of money you're spending on Church Street doesn't go in there, and that would greatly exceed the price. And then before that, we did Johnsburg Road and the roundabout, and so there's a lot of extra money that's actually going to roads that you're not really giving yourself credit for of the total dollars that the village is expending towards roads.
You're absolutely right. And I think another thing too that, J.D. Walsh has been really good about is doing a lot of in-house cut and patch. And I don't mean just like little,
Big
small
stuff.
holes.
Yeah, he's doing a great
He's
job.
really doing a great job at preserving the roads we have, extending their life so that, we can get as much out of them as we can. The thing that's going to be important for us to continue to do is to monitor that road inventory that is done every year. Public Works Department and the Public Works Committee go out with Tim, take a look at the roads. They rate them based on what condition they believe they're in. And Tim, I don't know where you guys, if you've done that yet this year, where you were seeing the ones and the twos and where that's falling right now. But I know that you guys, I want to say it was last year or the year before, that you addressed all the ones, you were into the twos. I know that a lot of those you're trying to do some of these cut and patch, and this year you guys we're actually contracting out some of the general fund money for cut and patch, rolling over MFT money to a larger project next year.
The major road patching we're doing is where the Public Works guys, where it kind of goes beyond the equipment limits, and it introduces traffic control. So where we're contracting out is on Johnsburg Road, Wilmot Road, Riverside Drive, some of our collector arterials. All the local roads, 5 to 7 yard patches, which is a substantial patch, half of the road, maybe for 10, 15 foot long. Davey and the guys have a list that they're going out and attacking on a yearly basis.
They've really been doing a good job.
They have.
I can't even tell them transition of how much work.
Yep. So they're doing a great job, but it was 2 years ago, we knocked off all the ones and twos, which was a huge, remember that year we got great bids, we added a few things, added some additional patching, but we've been preserving the collector arterials because there won't be a call for projects at Council of Governments probably until 2020 or 2021. So that's what Davey's focusing on, and we're focusing on, is extending the life of the major roadway network, and then that way when there is a call for projects, Johnsburg Road, because it'll be 15 years by that time since we overlaid it. Riverside Drive, we're going to partner with McHenry Township and McHenry from Johnsburg Road all the way to 120. And then, again, some of the other roads, Wilmot Road, we partner with the township, and Spring Grove and Burton.
Well, and as a matter of fact, next year, we've already agreed to partner with Ringwood on our section over by McCullough Lake Road, and that'll be coming up next year.
That one's a 4-party deal that we're, Ringwood's the lead agency. We got Council of Government money back in 2014-15. It's moving forward. It'll be a 2018 construction project, and our piece is at McCullough Lake Road. But it goes from 120 in McHenry all the way east of South Sullivan Road, where McHenry Township left off last. So it's a pretty substantial project, but we have a very small piece in it. But to get that amount done between McHenry Township, Ringwood, and Johnsburg is the way you score big points and get a lot of major roads done. So right now, we're monitoring the 3s and 4s, and everything's looking real good. The guys are doing shouldering. They're doing drainage improvements. As long as we get the water off the pavement, it extends the life.
And I think that's what's different today with the approach, is trying to do small things that are going to help extend that life. I don't think it was taking place in the past.
And we know if we can get 20 years out of it, that's about where we're going to get the funding from, So the 10-year to 12-year timeline is just unrealistic. I mean, seriously, any of the towns I represent, it's an unrealistic goal to even think you'll have that money, so 15 to 20.
Jim, more to the point, on these interior subdivision roads, is it even realistic that you need to do them that frequently? If you're maintaining them?
Right. If you're maintaining them, you can extend the life beyond 20.
I think when we start talking about the subdivision roads too, you gotta look at the roads. I mean, like Charnbrook is used as a food.
That's I would call a little residential collector.
Road, right? So I mean, we'd probably do that more than 20 years, But you go into I mean, some of our subdivision up until we put that Band-Aid on it was the original chip, tar and chip coat, and it was still in pretty good shape, you know? And that's probably on the worst round in the whole village. You know, when you think about it, it's in the slough. The King's cows used to get stuck back there, and well, it's gonna go. Anyways, but,
I think it's monitoring the loads coming in and out, monitoring the garbage trucks, only having, garbage trucks come on certain days. Other towns have multiple providers, so you've got garbage trucks in and out on a Monday, on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, and it just fills your loads.
Ready to keep going? Guess what's next? The end.
conclusion.
Conclusion.
Good job.
Thank you very much for your
I
time and
guess
attention.
something I have to add from Mary Lou, because she asked me this before, and I will, and from the committee. And I want to bring us back to page 12 for a minute.
What are we doing, Lord?
Page 12. So as a committee, almost 2 years ago, we made the recommendation we go out for sales tax as the best way to handle these underfunded items. And we got the people to agree to it, and we want to be good stewards of that money coming in from that sales tax. And these underfunded items were the items that we said we needed to really attack. These are annual numbers. This $498,000 isn't going to be gone next year, even if we could fund it this year. This is what we do need. Now, we talked a little bit about roads just now, and we said, we're doing a good job here or there, but we're not going to be ready for a 2020 project of any major proportion if we're not set money aside for that. And we're not going to have money for 1% increases a year or 0.5% increases a year in either IMR operatives. Like pension funds, again, it's something we can't control. The reserves, we can control it, but you saw what 2 months worth of revenue is, or 2 months of expenses are for the village. I mean, we need to be more cognizant of the fact that all it takes is 2 months of no income taxes. When I did work here at the village, the year I came in, we literally were looking to see how we were going to make payroll that month, because the state had not paid us for like 3 months in a row. I mean, these are things we have to be aware of. And while I have no doubt having this building person that's in place would be great, if the project hasn't been vetted, if we haven't attached numbers to what he's going to do and how he's going to do it, I mean, it's kind of like any other project that you do. If you don't know what it's going to cost you going in, you know it's going to cost you more than when you're done. And, we're talking about a new village hall down the road, things like that. We want to be poised to be able to take advantage of each one of these areas. And so we, as a committee, really feel to be good stewards, we need to find some way to put $50,000 in reserves this year. We need to keep these things in mind first before looking at things we would like to do. And every one of you guys have projects here you want to do. And, Kevin's not here to support roads, but I'm sure he would be saying he'd want more road money for roads this year too, even though we've given him more this year than we've given him any other year. So, I mean, as a committee, that's where we were coming from with our recommendation, and, we really do feel there is a need to look at reserves and to keep these items in mind when spending that extra sales tax revenue that we're bringing in.
Thank you. Okay, I just want to raise a couple items before somebody makes a motion or how to proceed, when we passed the sales tax, and I got the original sheet here, it was the village's need to establish sufficient revenue to support road resurfacing and other underfunded capital items, okay? We never said specifically it was going to be used for these things. We said that it was going to be used for capital items And that's how we came across the list that you guys approved. Josh, and when I say you guys, I can't say you, okay? But, so you're innocent either way. But the trustees that were on the board at that time approved that we move forward with those items with the money we had of how to dividing it up, okay? And moving it around so we could do things, okay? So the survey was conducted, solicited input from residents on how we would want additional costs supported. That's where we came up with the list that we approved and sent out of how the money was going to be spent. The majority of the residents responding to the survey indicated that they prefer to pursue an increase in sales tax to support underfunded capital items. All literature, and that was what I was saying here, was sent out regarding sales tax referendum, explained that additional funds would be used to support road resurfacing and underfunded capital items, which they're all capital items. Last year, in preparation for the budget, the board met to identify how the additional revenue should be dispersed. That was the list that everybody here, except Josh, you're in the clear, okay, looked at and said, we want to fund all these things the best we can, the wish list, you know, how do we do, you know, all these things that people are telling us what to do, how do we go about it, okay? So at that time, a plan was established and approved by the board that dispersed the additional revenues primarily towards road resurfacing, sewer extension plot projects, and police pension, with the remaining funds going towards future facilities, park and field improvements, sidewalks was a huge one, signage, and economic development incentives. And we want those economic development monies in there so we got a great plan, but now we got to market the plan. And we got to get people to buy in and build and expand on our revenues, and that's the next step, okay? These items were identified as being underfunded based upon feedback being received from the community. We did 2 surveys, and the proposed budget with a breakdown of capital projects being pursued was first presented to the Finance Committee in January. The document included the capital item along with how it was being supported, and no concerns were raised at that time regarding the use of sales tax dollars. That's just a summary of things that have happened and pursued since a year ago when we put the list together and said, okay, how do we move forward? How do we spend these additional dollars?
Yeah, I'd like to interject something on that point too. When you take a look at this sheet, and I'm referring to the new revenue distribution sheet too, in terms of the Finance Committee's concerns regarding where those dollars are going, in fiscal year 2018, what's being proposed here represents of the $385,000 of net sales tax, new sales tax collections, $315,000 of those funds are going to roads, sewers, and police pensions. And that's actually the lowest year. When you jump up to fiscal year 2019, of the $392,700 that is being collected, $380,000 of those are going to roads, sewers, and police pensions. So I think, you know, certainly the Finance Committee's concerns regarding those items being funded and being taken under serious consideration are reflected in our plan here as we're moving forward, both now and into the future. And certainly their point with regards to reserves, we needed to build reserves. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. But I do just want to emphasize that the funds are going in those directions.
Claudia, you said how much was going to roads in the 2018 budget?
2018 budget, a total of $315,000 is going towards roads, sewers, and police pension combined this time. The next year it jumps up to $380,000.
Okay. Does somebody want to make a motion and a second, and then more discussion on the motion and how to proceed? Motion on on the original proposal, the amended proposal?
The one that you guys proposed, get put together?
The original proposal that was sent out? Okay. We have a motion on the original proposal that was sent out. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Josh? There was a motion by Kyle, seconded by Josh. Discussion on the motion. Further discussion on the motion.
Tim, I have a question for you. On the original budget you sent out, I should ask you earlier about this. I noticed the developers for impact fees and stuff.
Yeah.
Remington was not in there. And I know they're going to be building some houses, so is that going to help us with the revenue stream from this?
You know, we did
That's a River
assume,
Farms, Dutch Creek Estates, and Western Ridge, but I know
Yeah.
Remington's going to build, so.
yeah, let me just refresh my memory. We did assume,
Or the River
Well,
Farms.
and actually, I can address that, Kim, because I think that, when we put those monies in, we look very conservative at what's more certain.
Right.
You're absolutely right. If that occurs, that will positively impact the budget.
I know.
We just
y'all
don't,
did a
there's
great
no
job.
trending information, and I would much
Yeah.
rather say you can
Yeah.
feel confident in the numbers, especially when it comes to building, than what we're showing you.
Sure. And I don't want to overestimate that, but that's
Right.
something that we're going to discuss, if there's overages or whatever, and that could be an area we could get it, or economically,
Absolutely.
people are spending more, we're seeing Walmart, we could see more money coming from either one of the streams.
You know, another area too where we expect to potentially see more money is Kim is performing a comprehensive review of our building permit fees. I spoke to you
Yep.
and your committee about this a little bit.
Yep.
And they are seriously outdated. And I think that you'll start to see those come up to par more with our cost experience on that end as well.
Any other questions or concerns?
No, I'd like to just touch base on the new position. You know, coming from a large company, I see the benefits of having a guy like that. We have our own maintenance team at our plants. You know, we have 95 employees on the floor, so I'm involved with that. I just wanted to pick your guys' brains, ask him about, you know, what he can do, what you guys do now, if you have to hire out, license. So I do agree with you guys on that, and I do see the bigger we get, we need a guy who can help out more, you know? I was amazed when you took me to the Public Works building, that 4 guys did all the work and cleaned those trucks and the maintenance on them. It was very impressive that a 4-man crew could do that.
I walked one Keel through it a few weeks ago, and he was impressed.
It was
After a
amazing.
snowstorm,
It
he
was
just looked at all the trucks and
Yeah.
and the job that they do and say, whatever you do, don't lose any of these guys.
Yeah, 4 guys
Where
did it.
you
I was
find
blown
guys
away by
like
that.
and
So I can see the importance of having a guy. I can understand your point of showing where the money is coming from. I can envision, I can relate to Rick saying, okay, we're pulling money from here, here, and here, because he's gonna be doing a lot of things, but that doesn't line up to you at all. In the finance committee, you guys need to see the hard dollars, know what we're spending and why we're spending. So I get that, but I'm also on board with knowing what this guy's capable of doing, and the growth we're looking to do. So I'm definitely in agreement with that. You know, the vehicle, maybe we can save money and do something else besides $30,000 to help offset that. That's something I'd like to look at, you know. What did we use before when we had previous guys doing it? Do we have a vehicle?
Yes,
Did we? Was it a car or truck?
it was a truck.
It was a truck, so buy the new,
Well, you know, if we're expecting this guy to do repairs.
Yeah, he's gonna need
we're expecting
a
him to
bed and
work,
everything,
We're
and-
not, we're expecting a worker bee. type
Right.
guy, you know.
so 4-wheel drive, he's gotta get out in any condition.
And that he can, you know, get his CDL and help us and,
Right.
you know, if there's a snowstorm and, you know, we can put him in plowing and that
Just
we
go,
can.
help out anywhere.
Yeah, and, you know, that we can take the maintenance to
Right.
another level. I mean, we've got a door out there and it's a minor problem, it's stuck for 6 months, you know, and that I think that
Exactly.
a hammer to it, we can, you know, so.
Right.
You know, and, you know, just little projects that come to painting, but as we do these things, and like the coordination of signs was huge time spent for what, that her time shouldn't be spent doing that. I
Kyle,
got
too.
more
And Tim's,
things.
I think, right, there's three of us, you know.
Right, and
We're all
you
around
understand,
that
I mean,
time
but
and
then I'm
everything.
not, I'm not at all underestimating the work that the finance committee did, and they years back, got us through hard times and got us to a new level, and the work that Tim has done, I mean, that's how I refer to everybody here is, we got an A-team. We're very fortunate to have the people that work for the village that we have.
Right.
And I think we're at that point, where that guy is gonna be very valuable. You don't wait till you need him. You wait and bring him in.
We get to use
part of
that,
your
I
team,
get it.
And I think the electrical aspect of it, where he could do 3-phase and 4-phase and all that stuff, where I would never expect Davey to be doing that kind of stuff, or converting the building over to these generators and stuff, okay? He's a great guy. He's good at electrical. I am too. I can change an outlet or a switch, but, and don't even have to turn the electric off.
Yeah.
Anyways, but, okay, Rick, thanks.
I think that the only concern I have with the proposed position is because I do a similar kind of thing with the company I work for, where I'm, boots in the mud or hands in the dirt, or, when things are slower, or I'm going through contracts and proposals in the office, or I'm just supervising others and keeping track of work being done, it varies. And it becomes difficult to be in all those different places. So my only concern would be if permits are on the rise and coming in, can this person realistically be in an office, sitting down, reviewing plans, and also doing a lot of these
It may
other
be
tasks?
where this person goes to school, gets training, gets certified, okay? And it may be, at one time our building department was 2 people. And Claudette's office was separated into 2 cubicles. We had 2 people in the building department. That was probably, back to 2006, 2007, when we had the input of Prairie View Estates and that kind of stuff, okay? So it may be that at that point in time, okay, where we have this guy trained and part of our team where he's doing all of it, that's going to take a few years, okay, to happen, where he's totally, I'm not worried about where we get as far as the right guy. If we get the right guy for the electrical part of it, that's the first part, but as skilled as at carpentry and all that kind of stuff, I get your point. But it may be at that time where, if it ever goes like that, gets to that point, maybe we would, at that time, take a guy like Tim and move him into the building department, because he wants to grow with us too, okay? But he's not at that caliber where he's gonna fix stuff, do stuff, do actual work and labor, at that point yet, but he would maybe be the person that would do plan reviews. I don't know that's like a crystal ball. We grow into that, just like we have grown, over the years. 10 years ago or 20 years ago, we had 1 truck and no public works employees. Now we got a team that is working really, really well, and I think we're doing really, really efficient, And at that time, Tim and the Public Works Committee, decided that, we shouldn't outsource. And then, a few years back, we decided, well, we should outsource the lawn cutting and that stuff, because it was more efficient to do it that way when we tallied up all the hours that they spent working on them, and we kept track of what they did, maintaining the motors, buying the motors and everything else, and put that over on a chart over life expectancies. And we found out that, it's costing us more to cut our own grass than it is to outsource it. And every year we've saved money doing that. It's come down, it hasn't gone up, it's come down in the last 4 years that we've done that. So, I think you always got to be looking at different things, but I think at this point, we're at the point where when we're going through with all these other projects, and it's going to expand, and we put the list together of all the things that everybody wants. Not that we can all have everything, because there's not enough money to go around, but we need somebody to do that that stuff, okay? So, that's where I'm at with it.
I think that's a good point, and that's why I said earlier about looking at 1 to 5 years out of expansion. I mean, I think we are in a growing phase again, but we have to be ready to, when you guys said this is a harder time, so it's a year, we need to let people.
Yeah, it's not like you're gonna find that right guy then, you gotta work to find the right guy now, where everything's not going nuts. And the good chemistry that fits in with our employees and the great team that we got established here.
Laura, I got another question for you on the allocated for reserves of 50,000. Your whole committee feels very strong on that?
Well, yeah, we do.
Yeah, you do.
And the basis is the uncertainties that we see in other areas.
Right.
And the fact that, you know, it takes a lot of money to run a village for 2 months if you don't have some money coming in that you're counting on meeting that. We gotta start sometime. I mean, that 100,000 that's sitting there has been sitting there since 2010. It hasn't changed. So, you know, it's kind of like with roads. If not now, when?
Right.
We can always run from these things. Yeah, and we'll get by. We got good people, we'll get by. But at some point in time, either a good opportunity is going to be missed, or something's going to happen that, like I said, 2008 was it when I came here, when we had literally almost nothing sitting in the bank to pay payroll. You know, it's just, you just don't know when that's going to happen. And I'll tell you, there are people out there who believe, there's a village here in McHenry County who wants to cut their budget 20% and use up their reserves because they want to hand their village money. And in the long run, is that a good thing? No, because they will have nothing in reserves, and they're not going to have someone to go to when they need that money, when that sales tax doesn't come in, or that income tax doesn't come in. You know, there's other uncertainties we didn't even address. Retail is a huge uncertainty. You know, brick and mortar retail has been disappearing. You know, we lose pennies, we lose a good chunk of money that we're counting on in this budget. So to plan for these uncertainties, increases in pensions, losses in state funds, losses in sales tax, we need to have some money in reserves.
On the other hand, you know, the other side of that is, you know, those expansions of the sewer system and stuff that we're doing and bringing it here, those are things for economic development that we have to keep doing. You know, we have to move forward. We all know that we have to expand our business base. You know, back when we combined the 2 villages, and I hate to be a historian here, but we were 3%, 90%. I think that was the ratio, right, Rick? It was 90%, you know, bedroom community and 3% business community. We set our goals then that if we were going to do these things that everybody wanted us to do and, you know, do and increase on, that we had to increase that tax base, you know, and we stuck our necks way out there when we did the sewer plant out on 31 and bought the property and you know, the water system and the water tower. And if we wouldn't have did that, we wouldn't have the revenues that we have now to increase and support these things. So, I do not, you know, I appreciate all the work that the Finance Committee has put into it, but I think these things are all steps of how you move forward to create more revenue, not less revenue. Okay? And that's what I'm hoping that we see. We got to keep investing in our community just like, you know, you have to invest in your business, and keep everything moving forward.
Lori, I just had to ask a question. Did you guys see anywhere else in the finance committee that you thought you could cut back, a budget item that's also overfunded, that we never spend on, or anything else you could think of? Just have to ask the question.
You know,
Get your mirror out.
I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. We don't want to be the ones to sit there and judge somebody's project other than on the finance of it. You know, that's not our job. It's not what we're there to do. Do we think we should vet projects? Yeah, we do, you know. That this position is a perfect example of one that probably should be vetted before it's done. That way you know what you're going for, what it's going to cost you, and if you got what you wanted from it. You know, that's, I guess, the way we look at every project. What's it going to cost you, what are you going to get for it? You know, are you going to save, you know, what's the financing behind it? But that being said, I'm not going to sit there and judge a sign project or a park project or a water project, because that's not what we're there to do. You know, we're there to look at, you know, we're numbers people, but.
Sure. Okay. Any more discussion? I see Tom studying it, but he's missing half of his body right now.
They only cut out a small part.
Only a small part.
Yeah, you know, I think that, I see the logic in this position and creating this position. It makes sense. I would also feel more comfortable if there were numbers to kind of compare, like what do we expect to pay less to outside sources for plan reviews or for inspections, you know.
And there'll be a lot of discussion on that before and research done more before we do it. That's why he's only in there for 5 months of the year. Okay? Because we want to put those numbers that everybody is comfortable of how we're going to do it, what we're going to use them for. Okay? But I think it's still the time to be researching and getting that person the right guy moving forward. It was in the budget last year, but the priority was, you know, Public Works and Kim. And look how great we did there. So, you know, thanks. And Claudette was doing it. But she's like a dinosaur.
Thank you.
No, I'm sorry.
You said dynasty, right?
Okay, that's what I'm, okay. I said that wrong. It was a slip, that's all. Okay, are we ready on the roll? Trustee Clemstein.
Aye.
Trustee Curry.
Aye.
Trustee Hagan.
Aye.
And Trustee Frost.
Aye.
Motion carried. Now, for the President's report. Piece of paper I'm looking at, probably 6 of them. Okay. Typically, we send out the appointments. If you look at the ones that are in bold, everybody else has been on that committee, has expressed their interest to stay, or we are replacing a person. For example, in finance, Rich Harbeck, he was there before. He has expressed that now that he's retired, I think he did a great job on.
Oh, you would be great.
Yeah. So he has expressed that he would like to come back to finance. So when I was walking door to door, I think it was with Josh. We met him in the garage out there, remember? And he said that he was on finance and he's retired now. Did a great job. So he would be our pick for finance. Economic development, Laura King, she's expressed her interest in being on that committee. And all the other committee members have said that they would like to stay in place, and that would be the same. As you remember, last time we appointed Pat McAndrews to the police commission, and you have already given your consent to that. So with that being said, I'd like to entertain a motion that those 2 folks be appointed to those committees and everything else remain intact. So, motion by Trustee Frost, second. Trustee Curry. Discussion on the motion. Trustee Clemstein.
Aye.
Trustee Curry. Trustee Hagan.
Aye.
And Trustee Frost.
Aye.
Motion carried. I'd also like to bring to the board's attention that on pardon me? Pardon? Sim, do you have something?
No, just to spell like my name is not Von Alderman.
There's a couple spelling errors on there.
I typed it.
Sure it is.
There's an extra vowel.
It's silent.
He's not official, you're not.
Which as am I.
As you know, on a week from tonight, on the 23rd, we are meeting with we have already met with the Church Street residents that are not going to be able to hook into the wastewater treatment system, but are part of the road project. I think everybody's familiar when we do the Church Street and St. John's Avenue, that the sewer line, where it's going to extend from, as far as, is everybody aware of that? You mean like, huh?
You better explain it.
Okay, Tim?
Sorry, what?
Your job. Explain them where the sewer lines are all going from Fairview up to the junior high.
Sewer's taken off where it currently has ended at St. John's Avenue, just north of the roundabout. Right at that location, it's heading west, all the way to Birds of Paradise or Big Frames, and then it's going up the west property line of the properties on the west side of St. John's, along the third baseline, all the way community club property up to and including the church and the school. So, and then that's the main line that we're putting in because of the depth of the storm sewer and the size of the project. We made that investment to put the sewer in now in those locations. We're also finishing where we left off by Bush Grade School. We're extending the sewer west to the end of the original design, which is right before the junior high's entrance, their west entrance. So what that meant by not all people are coming to be able to hook on, the people east of Fairview will not be able to hook on until a later date when we extend it from another location. The system just doesn't keep branching off. Certain locations benefit based on topography and grades. The people on the east side of St. John's Avenue have larger lots, and in the future we could run a separate line behind them. That's where all their septics are. So we can handle that separately. And then people from Litch all the way down to Spring Grove Road and all of Jacana will not be included. But what we're doing with that line heading to the west through Rescue Squad Park, that sets the table by putting a manhole there that can run up the west side of Rescue Squad Park, and that meets the original intent of the design that would then serve all of Jacana. So I think that's what Ed meant by, we met with all the residents impacted by Church Street's project, Hillcrest to Johnsburg Road and St. John's Avenue, but there was only a select few because of the investment you're doing now with the sewer and the storm sewer and the roadway project. It'd be silly not to finish from Bush to the junior high. We're reconstructing that road, new sidewalks, new curb and gutter, new lighting, and then all of a sudden those people say 5 years down the road, I want sewer, and we'd be like, hey, let's rip right down the brand new road. We'd look kind of foolish, like we didn't plan this. So we have a plan for other locations. If their group wants to come in, it can all be done without impacting, I'll call a major project this year. So does that answer?
Yep.
Okay, so what we're proposing to present to these people, because up until now, if you wanted sewers, you had to go out with your petition and get an SSA and get 55 to 60% of the people, so that we knew that we would invest the money in the engineering and the planning to move forward with that SSA, and that we had the support of the people in that area for that SSA, okay? And then when that project was complete, it then went on your tax bill, and boom, there it was, and you started paying for it whether you were using it or not, okay? And then if you did hook on, you had a the monthly fee of $35. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, 32. And you'd be paying that sewer usage fee right away, but you had to hook up. Okay, you had to hook up within a year's period. We gave them to hook up. Okay, what we're doing, and I want your support on, is for these people, because they don't have a choice. In other words, they didn't have a choice of an SSA coming in here and getting an SSA, okay? What we're proposing is that there's some people that want to hook up right away. Like Jim Smith says, hey, just get it to me. I'm tired of my wife going to the laundromat for 30 years and hanging my wash on the line and all that other stuff. So he's ready, to hook up. There are some people that want to hook up right away, just like on Fairview Avenue. So what we're proposing with those people is that we will give them 5 years to hook up, okay, at the $21,000 limit, okay? If they don't, that gives them, they can hook up tomorrow, and they can pay for it, and then start paying just the fee to the village for the usage, or they can hook up tomorrow, and we'll finance it at the same interest rate as SSA that we just approved, and it will be added as a monthly fee onto their $35, which will come out to about $187 for 20 years, I think, or 77. It's in that area, okay? And if they don't want to hook up, they have 5 years to hook up at that rate and can get the same deal, $21,000, because they don't have the choice, okay? We don't want to force them and then have the price of that project go up $1,000 every year. So it's $26,000 now in 5 years, and we make it unaffordable for those folks that probably have houses on that street ready to, what would you say, $50,000 you know what I mean? So we're trying to, give them alternatives, keep it affordable. We subsidize it, the people on Sunnyside Beach, so to keep the project moving. And like we said, it would be stupid not to put in the road and then tear it up in a little bit and start over. So that's what we're going to propose to those folks. Anybody got any problems with that?
So if their septic then fails, then they have to look up, right?
Yeah.
They don't have a choice, right?
The McHenry County Health Department gave us their opinion last year for this very reason. And again, once we let them know, we already let them know that other sections are in, and so when they have a failure, if they're within a certain distance, which they all are, there will not be an option for a septic repair with variances. They will be asked to hook up, which again, we can work with them on the finances.
And we report that, right, Tim? So it's reported, so somebody tries to buy it or sell it, then
That's correct. Yep.
But this way, we're getting those people,
Right.
that in a $300,000 house, you're not still thinking it's different than a $150,000, not that it's different. Everybody has to flush, right? I mean, we're not there to put anybody out of their house, or, it gives you 5 years to even plan for it and come up with the money to hook up.
Is that published next, the 23rd is a public meeting, or, if they want to attend to hear the...
Yeah, I'll post the agenda. I was planning on posting an agenda in the board.
Yeah, I think it'd be good if you can make it, because you'll hear the benefits, the exciting project, and then the history. Gosh, I think it'd be beneficial, and then, others who haven't been here through some of these SSA discussions and things. And then you'll see the recap with the funding options. I think that way, when you go out into your neighborhoods, or your areas, or your organizational meetings, and people ask questions, they always do, I think that we'll all be equipped with the same sheet of music, to continue to spread the good news. There's nothing worse than some folks on Fairview still think they're hearing about $38,000 or $40,000. That's never been the case, but yet that's where they lead to if they're not communicated enough to.
Right.
So again, I think if it's posted, please try to attend.
Where's the meeting?
It's
Here
here.
at Village Hall,
I'm gonna
7 o'clock.
post this up. Does anybody have a problem with that? Because I don't want to tell them that's what we're going to do. I mean, to me, it seems like a fair and reasonable solution. Plus, by putting that line behind the places on Johnsburg Road, we already got the other side with Fritz and everybody hooked up. It increases some, economic development opportunities that they can hook up, and some of those other places can make be expanding for this.
Yeah, there are so many small holding tanks, septic tanks. It'll allow existing buildings to be rehabbed, change their use. I mean, intense uses can be easily hooked on, and so business attention, business attraction. Some of the vacant lots, some of the homes that are there, that vacant lot next to Big Franny's. Think about that when it has the sewer stuff through it. It could be a huge asset in our downtown, which is what we've been striving for.
So the whole idea is to give everybody options, and that meeting will be about those options, and it will get everybody, they can hook up if they need it. There's several people that need it. Boom, it's there. And they got the option of going getting a home equity loan, financing it through the village on a monthly basis, and, you know, I think it's fair, because it's not like they had the choice like everybody else that came down an SSA and got 51%.
The one other thing I say about this is previous boards have always taken the stand, and I think, you know, you guys probably want to do the same thing, is the village has always maintained that no matter what, that you're not going to put somebody out of their house, and if somebody actually has this really severe economic deal where they cannot deal with it, they always have the option of coming in on a private deal, talking to Claudette, working out some sort of a structure that the village is taken care of and they're taken care of, and it's private, but, you know, nobody will, you know, we've always taken the stand that we're never going to put the retired lady who's 90 years old and has no income at all, you're not going to put her out of her house because she has to hook up to the sewer. And I think there's always options within the community to do it, and, you know, if somebody has a really bad hardship and, you know, maybe somebody would step up and charity or some other damn thing for them, but that always can be addressed on a private deal. That's always a board decision, but, you know, you got another new board here, I think something to think about, especially when you're talking to people in the community, when the first thing is, you're going to put somebody out of their house. Well, that's never been the objective, and it's never been done.
In fact, you know, it's funny when we were going, Josh and I were going door to door, how many people that said, when is it coming, were the same people that in 2007 was telling me, I never want it. You know, how many people do we hear say that?
A few.
Anyways, with that being said, Lori, thank you very much for all your
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you, Warren. Thank you.
With that being said, do I entertain a motion for adjournment, or does somebody have some old or new business that they'd like to bring up?
I'll motion to adjourn. You can tell me when that clock's gonna get back up there.
This weekend.
All right.
We're gonna get a new one.
All right, good.
Nice.
I'll second it.
A bigger one?
Yes. Motion to adjourn at 9:27, motion by Kyle, seconded by Josh. On the roll, trustee Flemstein, trustee Curry, trustee Hagan, and trustee Frost. Motion carried. Thank you very much, Kim, for that.
Yeah, good job.